We're at Claymine. It's a lovely little park with lots of trails, including a trail for handicapped people to be able to maneuver some wilderness. And I'm covered up right to the neck because there's quite a few mosquitoes around. And we're hoping for some wildflowers. And I've got my bear spray for eventualities. So hopefully maybe do some artwork to do with Claymine. Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline Studio. I'm Sybille Muschik. Well, it's been an interesting time this morning with our first preliminary exercise, which was, well, not quite an unqualified success. But we're on to the second part now, and this is far more formal. I want to introduce you, and Josh will give us the name of it. Thank you very much.
Canadian tiger swallowtail.
Right, okay.
I got it wrong before.
And you can see this poor little fellow is none the worse for wear. He's got little holes in parts of his, I don't know what that part is. I'm not a butterfly aficionado. Back end of his wing anyway. And I guess he's just hanging in there. Yes, we saw him at the Claymine Trails and took some quick photographs before he flitted off. And we're going to be working with him and some of the foliage that we encountered there. I dried it, and it's not too bad for printing a little bit of greenery. So we will get on with it, and we're going to start just with a yellow background with a little bit of blue to make patches of green. Not too much paint. And we're kind of sticking just with our Amsterdam paints for now. The studio is quite warm, and we're finding things are sticking like crazy. And I guess people who live in the warmer countries have this problem with their gel plates when it's warm and really hard to print. So now we know what that's like. But it depends on the paint too. The Amsterdam paints are quite lovely. So that's going to be our first layer. As usual, we'll be working with our Oriental paper. This will be our background. It's just sort of we're trying to get sort of what this is in the background here, a little bit lighter. Well, so far so good. We had it sticking like crazy in the last little snippet, so set that aside. Okay, the next layer is going to be blue. And mostly blue and a bit of yellow, and so it's going to be a bit darker. And so we'll put our yellow down. And our blue. I'm going to just add a bit of phthalo, and hopefully this is not going to give us trouble. Of the fluid acrylics. Because we're mixing it with this paint, we're going to not have any problem with it beading up on the surface. And that's quite nice. So far, so good. I don't know what that is. I think this is cranberry, the high bush cranberry. And then this is a fern that we came across. I'm not sure what's this one.
I think it's like a wild currant.
A wild currant, okay. And we're just going to lever it down a bit. Not take too much of the paint off. I'm not even sure the leaves will show up all that well, because in my first piece that I did, it didn't. So I'm just getting rid of most of the paint here in between the foliage. Because it's sticking up a bit, you're going to have little halos around things. You can, of course, cut it out of tissue or tracing paper, but that would be very painful. We just want to be impressionists today. We just want an impression of the foliage. There we go. And we'll lift that up. And then we print. Now we could have registered this, but I'm getting fairly good at getting it on there. With a woodcut or a lino block print, of course, you've got everything registered, but with monotypes it doesn't seem to matter so much. And besides, half the time we're mounting it on something else, so. We're not getting too much sticking in spite of using the fluid acrylics. So that's, I think we see the foliage fairly well. So that gives you the impression of this background forest that we were through. Okay, next step, we're going to have our butterfly. And I'm just going to touch up some of the graphite on here, then we'll do a graphite transfer, and then we're going to cut it out. So we'll show bits and pieces of that. If you see, what is it, episode 33 or 32, and I think 31, you'll see the whole process. And so check those out. And we're trying to shorten this up as much as possible. So the next step is just to redo the graphite. So I'm just touching up the graphite drawing I've done of the butterfly, and I think it was Simone who asked me if I always do this. Well, I have printed it already once, so it's a good idea to go over the graphite just to make sure that it transfers really well. And if you see anything that needs touching up, well, then you can do that too. So I'm just darkening the graphite. And if you want to maybe embellish it a little bit, I think this is an elderly butterfly. Probably a long-suffering mother. Who's maybe finished laying all her eggs and taking a breather. We came across, this is probably something in a future video, but last week in our usual jaunts, we like to get out and in between shooting, we like to get out and either take a canoe ride on the lake, and this time, because it was raining, we took a little jaunt, a little tour, and we were filming fireweed, and Josh noticed there was this enormous caterpillar. Now, maybe one of her children, I don't know.
It wasn't one of these.
No.
But it was very interesting.
Yeah. So that's what we were doing, and on top of that, there was we disturbed a honeybee that was sleeping in one of the petals, and I think we got footage of that, and it was very annoyed with us for waking him up. So make sure these veins are prominent. Now, if you touch a butterfly, it's quite disastrous for the poor little insect because it takes off their layer of protection. You'll find your fingers get dusty. I'll just enlarge his eyes a little bit. When I cut the last one out, I lost the little, we might have to redraw that. And make sure the body is prominent. Okay, as usual, this was the Faber-Castell Pit Graphite Pure 2900 9B pencil. Now to get it on the plate, and we're going to be printing it on our Oriental paper, and then we'll cut it. Next step would be to paint the butterfly, and then we'll cut it out, and then we'll collage it onto our first sheet. I really like this process. I know I've been using it quite a bit, but it's so handy because you get your image and then you can paint. So my plate, a little bit of phthalo blue. This is our golden medium fluid acrylic and the yellow. These are very intense colors. And I'm always scared to mix them with, but you pretty well have to or they bead on the plate. We had the sticking problem and it's just like glue. It's quite hot in the studio right now, which is unusual. My paint is not behaving itself. I didn't really mean to put green in there, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So now we paint all the yellow sections. I'm just using a rigger brush, my usual Winsor Newton Gold series, I guess. Now the graphite doesn't print so much because the paint is raised a little bit, and if we're lucky it'll print somewhat, but it's more a help for me to do the painting. I might even embellish it with the black. You can see even with the medium on it, it's beading on me. Paint is tricky sometimes. at certain temperatures it does weird and wonderful things which are not make painters very happy. Particularly in marbling. I did a marbling seminar at one point, and the temperature for that has to be below 75 Fahrenheit. And so it was relatively cool in our working space. I think everybody was freezing. But hey, the marbled papers turned out really well. And then we cranked up the stove afterwards. This was in Wells, which is a wonderful artistic community. Island Mountain Arts is a major art scene, particularly the Tony on the Artist Project, which I've been at about 5 times. You can get scholarships and apply for bursaries and all that kind of thing. But with COVID, it hasn't been running the last couple of years, so hopefully we'll be able to start that up again pretty soon. We get just wonderful mentors who are professionals in their own field, and then they show us students all sorts of weird and wonderful ways of working to create some wonderful artwork. Okay, some yellow touches down in here and there. And the rest are these blue spots that are, I don't know if you can see that or not, it's the little blue spots. Okay. The blue seems to be working better than the yellow. And I might just put more glue. See if that helps. And we'll probably have to wait for the butterfly to dry. And then I will cut it out. We won't do that on camera. It's just too tedious. So now we're at the point where we're going to transfer the butterfly, and we're just going to add a little bit of white. That's the release coat. You don't need a lot, you don't need to cover the whole gel plate. So the print turned out pretty well. We picked up a lot of the graphite, which is great. Now all we have to do is cut this thing out. And I have a new little knife that I'm going to be using. So just cutting it out. I got this at the dollar store too, and it had a really bunch of nice blades. Fairly sharp. And as usual, because cutting is kind of tedious, we're going to put an interlude in here. we got everything except one antenna. All right, we can put it on there. And this is a nice negative shape, so you could probably print with that as well. So don't lose that. So now back to our nice background. So now all we have to do is find a place for it. And not too centered, of course. And maybe somewhat like that. And then we'll place the antenna after we get him on there. So all you have to do, the best thing really is the golden matte medium. And just put it under a garbage sheet. Be gentle with that antenna. Right. So we said sort of around here. Place. Now it almost disappears on this paper. And let's find our little antenna. And I'll probably get it all over me. And then you have these little rolls of plastic that you have to get rid of, and your fingers and everything else. Just and there we go. And there we have it. And if you were using a heavier paper, you would probably have to outline it in black so that those white edges wouldn't show. But with using well, you could use deli paper too, but using our oriental paper, then that works great, and you have a little bit of a collage. So there you are. So thanks for joining me today. That was so much fun. It's a bit tedious because you do have to wait for all these different layers, but it's well worth it, and you'll have a lovely piece of artwork when you're finished. Thanks so much for watching. Come join us again here at Shoreline Studio as we explore and try things and make messes sometimes, but we usually end up with not a bad situation, and it's a lot of fun. Take care and bye for now.